Hi, Dale Tice here from Daneby Goods, and today I'm going to show you the Lehle 3-at-1 switcher. Lehle makes the greatest switchers on the planet. They make incredible line drivers, and this one's particularly close to my heart because primarily I'm a bass player, and the name tells you what it does. It takes 3 signals and can route it to 1 signal. And so for bass players, this is very important. If say we have an active bass, a passive bass, and an upright bass. Instead of having to unplug, plug back in, attenuate the volume of what we're doing, making sure that the active isn't too loud and the passive isn't too quiet, that can be a hassle on stage. And it's easier to leave them all plugged in and be able to go back and forth. And that's what you can do with the Lehle 3-at-1. Let's go through some of the features on it, and then I'll show you how it's used a little bit. Basically, you have 3 inputs, and they're labeled A, B, and C. And those can handle any 1/4-inch jack. So we have A, B, and C right there. So you can plug it and leave them in, guitar, basses, whatever. Then you have 2 outs. You have output 1 and output 2. That's if you want to run, and this is how flexible this is. So you have the 3 instruments in. You can run to 2 amps out, or you can run to your amp and then leave another one for a tuner. So all with this one device, you can mute your output and go to a tuner, tune up for all 3 of the inputs, or if you have 2 different amps. And this is really helpful for upright players. Say you have your standard amp for your electric basses, but then you have a smaller or a different amp for your upright. You can then set it so that when you pick up the upright bass to play, you can hit a switch and it routes the signal to that amp. That's how flexible this is. Let's talk about excuse me, the front panel. So here are the selectors for inputs A, B, and C, and you have LEDs that'll tell you what's going on. So you'll know when this bass is active or guitar. And I don't mean to leave the guitar players out, but again, as I'm a bassist, it's closest to my heart. Now, inputs A and B have the greatest addition ever, which is these little potentiometers, and that's how you can get your signals to match. If you have an old passive bass that has a lower output, and then you have this like super up modern active bass that's got a real high output, from this unit you can get unity gain. You can kind of make them the same level by using these potentiometers right here, which is just brilliant. And then lastly, I did kind of skip by, but you have this link cable here, which allows you to link it with other switchers that Lehle makes, so you can really make a customized foot switch or switching board, where one switch here can activate something else and change something else, and the possibilities are so endless that it just boggles my mind. This is also built like a tank. I've mentioned that before in previous reviews of Lehle stuff. They don't scrimp everywhere. There's no plastic chassis. This is hard, heavy-duty, well-built German engineering at its finest. So let me give you a couple scenarios so you can see if it's going to work for you. Say, as I mentioned before, so 3 input signals. A bass. I've even heard of guys who play guitar and bass with the band, so they could have literally a guitar in, a bass in. Ideally, you could take a mono synth in if you play synth bass, and then route that. Maybe instead of going into your bass amp with that, you go into a PA or a keyboard amp. So again, the outputs you can set up that way. The traditional way that I find I use it most is I have a single out. Output A is for my amp rig, and output B is for my tuner. But again, your results may vary. You may want to do it in an entirely different way. Now, I should mention that it's programmable. There's 3 modes of operation by itself. If you just buy this and you want to try, and it all functions with how the switches work. In its primary setup, if let's say you plug a bass into here, or you have instruments in all 3, and you want to play instrument 1 A that's in the input A, you hit the button once and it goes to output 1. So that's your main amp. But in its basic operation, if you hit it a second time, it'll go to output 2. So that's how simple it is. If you're playing and performing and in between songs you want to tune up, just hit the same button again and you can tune up. And that can be for all the switches. So if you're going to your fretless passive bass and you want to switch from input 1 to input 2, output 1 to output 2, you just hit the button again. And so really a marvel of design and engineering, because it's so simple to use, it's so flexible and powerful, and I think that every musician that takes more than one instrument on stage should have it. Now, I've been commonly kind of mentioning it as bass players, but I have heard from the music community a lot of guitar players use it because their guitars don't have the same output level. Say one of the guitars has EMGs on it, another guitar is an old Fender, or they have an acoustic guitar with the sound hole pickup. You know, all those are going to have varying levels, and so instead of plugging into your same rig and then having to go back to the amp and change things, you can do that through the A and B inputs, which have these attenuators on them. And I think that's just, you know, a must-have for players out there, because your audience doesn't want to see you have long gaps between songs as you're kind of getting your sound set up. It's easier if you can just have one device that'll do it all for you, and that's what the 3-at-1 will do. So I encourage you to check out the website, Lehle, Lehle.com. Go to the 3-at-1 page, see how they are suggesting you do it, and I also recommend that they offer the manual for free as a download. Download the manual, it's 4 pages long, read through all the features, and you'll just be blown away. Lehle and Lehle.com, the 3-at-1, what a great pedal. I hope you guys check it out, and hope it does what you need it to do, and you'll have better performance experience. Thanks a lot.